Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Simisha Latigo. Senegal and Chad have reacted strongly to French President Emmanuel Macron's statement that Sahel countries were ungrateful for the role France played in fighting jihadist insurgencies against terrorism in the regions. Macron made his comment at an annual ambassadors conference in Paris, where he said Sahel nations beset by civil conflict and violent extremism only remained sovereign because of the deployment of French forces. Macron then accused African leaders of, in quote, forgetting to thank France for preventing their nations from falling under the control of jihadist insurgencies. On his part, Chad's Foreign Minister Abdurrahman Koulamala has expressed concern over Macron's comments, saying they reflect a contemptuous attitude towards Africa and Africans. He said French leaders must learn to respect the African people and recognize the value of their sacrifices. Meanwhile, Senegal's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko said France had in the past contributed to destabilizing certain African countries, such as Libya, which had disastrous consequences for the region's security, adding that France has neither the capacity nor the legitimacy to ensure Africa's security and sovereignty. France has been on the back foot in its former colonial territories of the Sahel region of Francophone West Africa after military coups in Mali in 2020, followed by a second one in 2021, Burkina Faso in 2022, and Niger Republic in 2023, forced the withdrawal of French troops. The country is now reconfiguring its military presence in Africa after being driven out of these three Sahelian countries, governed by juntas hostile to Paris, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire have also asked France to leave military bases on their territory. Well, to discuss this further, I'm now joined by global affairs analyst and journalist Ekena Emewu. Thank you for joining me on the program, sir. Now, what do you think of Emmanuel Macron's claims that former colonies, that's the Sahel nations, now have not shown gratitude to France for its efforts in the fight against terrorism in their countries? Is there any truth to this statement?
Macron is right to the extent that he is a colonizer. He's right to the extent that possibly he doesn't know the history of France and annihilation of fellow human beings in their worlds in the past 500 years. Now, coming to his saying that Africans are not grateful, otherwise they should be saying thank you. He would say that and get away with it because we don't have strong leadership in Africa. If we had strong leadership in Africa, Macron wouldn't try that. Otherwise, the AU would have taken him to task because he didn't mention countries A, B, or C. He said the entire Africa. Macron should have explained to Africa the favor he did Africans, for which they should come around and say thank you to him. But he has said it, and it's nice that some countries like Chad and Senegal have decided to reply him. But that response is not enough. It should have been the entire AU responding to France over that gaffe. It is the worst political blunder Africa ever got from anybody after the colonization days. And Emmanuel Macron should be sorry for what he said. That's all I can say for now.
Are you then convinced that France actually played a major role in the fight against terrorism within the Sahel region, looking at the state of affairs in those nations?
Macron said they've been sending troops since 2013 to the Sahel to fight terrorism. How did terrorism start? What Macron and Paris are doing is what my people say: somebody gets into the forest and pulls down a tree and runs to the road to start screaming, who pulled down that tree? Macron should first of all ask himself in sincerity, who causes terrorism in the Sahel? There are a lot of pointers that France causes terrorism in Sahel Africa. France ceded to itself the right to mine and extract mineral resources of Sahel Africa. They don't have the right, as independent countries so-called, to give the contract to any company outside the approval of France. And those companies must be French companies to mine and extract mineral resources in the Sahel. That is why France has the largest gold reserve in the whole world, but France has no gold, no dot of gold, no molecule or atom of gold inside its soil or in its country. So France's attempt to keep dominating African resources is what makes them incite crisis in Francophone African countries. They will tell you that they are helping you to bring in people who quell the crisis. But has the crisis been quelled all this while? No way. It can't stop, because the people that instigate the crisis are the people who tell you that they try to stop the crisis. When Burkina Faso, Senegal, Mali, Niger, Chad are at war, France takes the benefit. Now, it started in 1958 in one of the instances. The government of Guinea floated its own currency, national currency, to be launched in 1960. A little after that currency was announced, there was a coup in Guinea, and the president was killed. It was instigated by France, because today, as we speak, none of these countries under the tutelage of France operates a central bank. The central bank is the Central Bank of Paris. They don't have any foreign reserve, and they are in the Central Bank of Paris. France has taken more than enough from Africa. I remind you of the statement of a certain Didier Breton, who used to be the economy minister of France, who talked so condescendingly on Africa that they will make sure one of the heads of the pushists, that is the coup plotters, falls, so that it will put fear in African countries trying the economic comfort and security of France. He pointed at Macron. He said, it is the stupidity, I'm quoting Breton, that it is the stupidity of Macron that opened the eyes of stupid Africans to know that France depends on them for survival. Now, if we today, those people you are helping, they decide they don't need your help anymore, should that cause a war? Should that cause an insult? Kindly go back to your country and use the resources you say you spend on them to help yourself. Since you know that without you, there'll be no sovereign in the Sahel and possibly in Africa, because you are the breath in their nostrils that keep them alive. Please take your breath away and watch them die so that you come over and take everything. That is the way to go. France should be ashamed of colonization in 2024. There's a place called New Caledonia. It is still under the colonization of France. In fact, in the Atlantic Ocean, there are 7 island locations in the Atlantic Ocean still being colonized by France. There are 3 in the Pacific Ocean still colonized by France. That of New Caledonia is exceptional. They agreed to pull free. They held a referendum in 2018, referendum in 2019. They were to hold the 3rd one and finally decide, because the margin increased. Those who said they are voting for independence moved from 43% to 46.7% between 2018 and 2019. When they were to hold out of 2020, they envisaged that the number who will vote to pull out from France's colonization will be larger. France deliberately fixed the referendum during the COVID lockdown so that the people saying no will not come out to vote. And they rigged it and told the world that New Caledonia still accepts to remain under the colonization of France. France should be ashamed. it gave or considered what it calls independence to the last Francophone country in Africa in 1977. That's Djibouti. 47 years after, France still hasn't taken enough from Africa. They still want to compel Africa, to hold Africa down, and to exploit Africa and crush Africans. And whoever opposes it, Macron comes out to insult the entire Africa. It's unbecoming. France should be ashamed. The country called France should be ashamed. It started long ago. The country that bruised the whole world and humanity and all races most was France through colonization. After Haiti, the first black race made of slaves to be free gained independence in 1804. After defeating the armies of Napoleon Bonaparte, they came back in 1825. King Charles X of France to insist that Haiti must pay them reparations, according to them, for the slaves they lost who used to make resources for them. Who were those slaves? They were all black. They were Africans, shipped here by force into the American continent. Now, they levied Haiti 150 million CFA in 1825. Haiti completed paying that money in late 1940s. How did they get the money to pay? The same France, through the Central Bank of France in Paris, loaned 150 million CFA to Haiti to pay France. And they were, as they were paying France, they were paying interests on that loan. That is what crippled Haiti today. France is responsible for the crippled situation and state of the state of Haiti. France has taken enough from the human race. They have bruised humanity enough. Macron should be ashamed. It's unbecoming. How could France call itself civilized when they're still subjugating fellow human beings in 2025?
Given that France's influence in these Sahelian countries is waning, what do you think prompted Macron to make such a statement?
It is frustration. France lives off African countries. France lives off its colonial territories. None of them is free. When they were about to leave, they drafted a crafty and deceptive and deceitful law they call the law of assimilation. That wherever you are, so long as you belong to a French territory, either former or presently, you are a French citizen. Look at their football club. Look at their Olympic Games contingents. Who populate them? Blacks. If this happens, anything happens to severe finally the relationship between African countries and France, France will really feel the heat less than the next 20 minutes. So the reason he spoke is out of frustration. Like I said, Didier Breton said that it is the stupidity, I am quoting Breton, the word I'm using is that of Breton, that is the stupidity of Macron that opened the eyes of docile Africa to know that France had been living off them. So they know what they will lose. Without these African countries and the colonial territories they still plunder and exploit, France cannot come close to being a superpower. So Macron's outburst is like that of a drowning person. He knows that these countries are hell-bent on living, on pulling up the shackles around their wrists and their legs. So he has nothing else to do than to start descending into obscene words and languages. But that will the situation. He knows France will feel the heat, and it will happen. And I wish these African leaders will hold steadfast to their resolve right now.
Going forward, what do you envisage the relationships between France and Sahel nations will be like, especially after Macron's statement against its former colonies?
I don't see it getting better. If, for instance, Macron was civil in his choice of words and vituperations, maybe it would have doused the tension a little. But now he is out for war. I don't think those people in charge of the Sahel countries are cowards to the extent that Macron will browbeat them with his insults and tirades. It won't happen. They will hold fast, stick to their guns, and dare him to do his worst. So I don't see it getting better. The New Year message of Ouattara, Cote d'Ivoire president, this 2025, is that all the 900 military troops of France must leave Cote d'Ivoire before the end of this January. That was a concluding message from Senegal, the president of Senegal. They have to go. They have to leave Guinea. They have to leave Cote d'Ivoire. They have to leave Senegal. They have to leave Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and Niger. It is not their place. There are no troops from any of these countries or any African country that is occupying or has a spot in the French territory, in the country called France. Now, these people said, you have done us enough favor. Take away your favor. We need it no more. It is not going to get better. And I wish it doesn't get better, because getting better means these people returning to the tutelage of France. And no reasonable African will wish that these countries will remain under the tutelage of France. No, it shouldn't be.
Mr. Emewo will continue this conversation after this break. Stay with us. The program will continue shortly. Welcome back. Let's continue the conversation on the recent spat between France and its former colonies in Africa. Mr. Emewo, a global affairs analyst and journalist, is still my guest on the program. Thank you for staying with us. Now, over time, the gradual decline of France's influence in the Sahel region has been shrouded in allegations of neocolonialism and exploitative ties. How credible do you think these claims are?
Remember that there was a kingdom called Timbuktu, the Empire of Mali, and a city called Timbuktu. What was that kingdom known for? Gold, and that is Mali. The Malian Empire had gold more than any place in the world. The gold is still there. I told you earlier that, France has the largest gold reserve in their central bank, but they don't have any gold deposits in their land, not a single thing. I told you earlier that these countries don't operate, they don't have currencies. You know that all of them use the CFA, and that CFA has variable values. The value of 10 CFA in France is not the same as the value of 10 CFA in Burkina Faso or Mali. So these variations are exploitations. Now, somebody manages your resources, mines your mineral resources, and tells you don't have a right to cede this money to some other person. And when it is sold in the person's currency, and the money accruable from that is deposited in the person's bank. How else do you define exploitation? These are the facts. These people know what they're saying. So there's exploitation. And I think the fear of a graduate going to be jobless shouldn't be enough to hold him in school forever because he wants to keep studying. Even if the Sahel countries are going to fail, I don't think France will be prosecuted for the failure of Sahel countries. Allow them to go and fail. Even if they're not going to run themselves well, that's fine. They have to learn by practicing how to manage themselves independent of the dictation of France. France has never been a good master because a good master allows the servant to grow and feel free. to exercise what he learned from the master. So the way France is imposing itself on Sahel African countries and all Francophone African countries in perpetuity is a sign that there's something it is gaining it doesn't want to lose. And all these people are not so stupid and dumb not to know that they are being exploited. So there's a fact in the claim of exploitation by France on African countries.
Now, in your opinion, could this sad relationship between France and its colonies have any effect on its economy? That's France now, and is there a likelihood of a restoration of relations between these nations?
Either France or Britain or Belgium or Portugal, none, not a single one of them can claim being advanced and developed without the resources they looted from the countries they colonized. When King Charles was to be crowned in England as the reigning monarch, India filed a petition that the crown the wife was going to wear, the queen, was stolen, was made from gold and other diamonds stolen from India. Another claim came up that King Albert stole gold, I think in 1901, from the mines of South Africa. With that, the crown King Charles War was made. They were all filing claims that they need these resources returned to them. You know the artifacts, the artworks taken from, looted from here. The Louvre, France's largest museum, is furnished like 80% with looted artifacts from the countries of the world. So France cannot claim advancement without what they stole from other countries. France's case is what my people say, that by the time you remove all the strands from a clothing, the person wearing it will stand naked. By the time you remove all those things taken from other countries of the world, France will have nothing left. And the fear is that if the victim starts to lay claims to what you took from him or how you victimized her, after the first claims succeeds, he comes for another one, she comes for another one, she comes for another one. That's the fear of France, that if these people start now to lay claims on what we have done to them, it's guilty conscience. They're already afraid that these people will keep coming back until all the strands that make up a clothing are removed. And the person wearing the clothing will stand naked, stripped. So, but if repercussions, if nemesis catches up with people and countries and societies, a day of reckoning will soon come for France.
Now, following the exit of France troops from their nations, the junta-led government in Niger Republic, Mali and Burkina Faso have been seen to move closer to Russia. How do you think that this will pan out eventually?
It may happen, it may not happen. And when you discuss France sparring with Russia, so what would invariably play out is NATO against Russia. Remember, there's already a simmering crisis between NATO partly and Russia in Ukraine. So it may happen if France thinks that it can never leave the Sahel Africa alone. Yes, they have the right to make new friends. They have the right to ditch old friends. Just like France, while exploiting the Sahel Africa, still made friends and created the NATO. NATO didn't exist from the beginning. They have the Paris Club, they have the G7, they all belong there. So they have been creating friendships around themselves. Therefore, the Sahel countries also have the right to create friendships around themselves. But what I would rather say, If it results into Cold War, fine. But I don't think Africa should be much stake to them. Now, since they believe Africa is nothing, so there be no need for Cold War. He can do without the friendship of Sahel Africa. France can still carry on. So no need they're going to war. But I will only caution the Sahel countries, much as you want to drop France, or you have decided to stand on your feet, let me not call it dropping France, much as you have decided to stand on your feet, be sure to stand on your feet. Don't go to make Russia one of your two legs. You can befriend Russia, but be careful about that, because you never can say. There's need for caution. Make sure you take some mileage on your own before you start looking for appendages and people you can lean on. But you know the way international politics goes, whoever is your friend becomes my friend because you're my friend. If you're my enemy, whoever is your enemy becomes my friend too, so that we team up to fight you. So naturally, France may take offense. And if they do, they might target Russia. If they do target Russia, NATO will align with France to go for Russia and to make sure that Russia doesn't save these African countries. I think somebody said it in the US Congress, that they cannot fold their hands and watch Africa, the source of their resources, pull free, and therefore making their own children to suffer in the future. Yes, it was a viral video, and the person was addressing the Congress when he said that. So this is when we will know if they are right to say that Africa is inconsequential, or there's a benefit they get from Africa they wouldn't want to lose. But international alignments are very fluid. They are very, very fluid. Nobody knows what the circumstances of alignments and realignments can throw up and make the weaker sides of the chain, or the weaker links of the chain, stronger, and the stronger sides weak. So we are watching the game play out. Yeah, when a new power structure or power game is unfolding at the global stage, reasonable actors sit back and watch it before saying something. Remember that Niger ousted American military base. So everybody is watching. Not yet time to start talking until the alignments are formed at the background before you start hearing reactions. So it's too early for the whole world to jump on the bandwagon and start just vocalizing things.
Mr. Ikenna Emewu, a journalist and global affairs analyst. Thank you very much for speaking to us on this. That's all we have on this episode of the program. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.